Let me also welcome you, remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that the floor is always open to you for questions and answers. Any point of time during the session, if you wish to clarify something, if you wish to challenge something, if you wish to share your opinions, your experience. I've done a lot of online trainings, a lot of webinars, and this is one of the most valuable pieces of any such session when the participants also exchange their views, because at the end of the day, we want it to be a mutually beneficial session. Everybody is giving, everybody is sharing, everybody is learning in terms of knowledge at the end of the day. Right. Let me introduce my organization to you. Many of you are already familiar with us. Nevertheless, I'm speaking to you from Ingram Micro Cybersecurity. I'm part of this organization called Ingram Micro, which is the largest technology distributor on the planet. 50 plus billion-dollar organization, one of the Fortune 50, in fact, and 35,000 or so employees who are distributed in more than 50 countries. We have offices in more than 50 countries around the world. So very large corporation with unmatched access to the market when it comes to the distribution sector. In cybersecurity, the cybersecurity division was founded in 2016 in Dubai. This is the team from which I'm speaking to you, and this beautiful building right here is where our office is located in Dubai Internet City. We are an advanced solutions provider in cybersecurity, meaning we provide not only services, but we also have our own innovative tools that we are developing, which you see over here: Discovery Virtual Lab, Cybergram, Multi-Vendor Architecture, tools and solutions that we have developed ourselves and which we are offering to our partners and thereby to their end customers at the end of the day. Right. So we've already seen the agenda. What is the plan for today's session? We will understand what really is digital transformation, what is a business impact, and then what are the different components of digital transformation. How can you secure each of these components with Ingram Micro Cybersecurity? This is the broad agenda that we have for today. Without further ado, let's get going straight into the session. Now, first of all, we need to try and understand what really is digital transformation. How can I define this? This phrase, digital transformation, it has been around for quite some time now. Many organizations, especially here in the Middle East, they have in fact set up dedicated digital transformation teams, and these teams have been tasked with understanding how certain sections of the organization's business can be digitized, right? So what is it that these teams are doing? How successful have they been? What really is digital transformation? Let's try to understand in this particular section. What really is digital transformation? Is it a simple project? Is it a technology? Or is it another version of the Industrial Revolution itself? Digital transformation, ladies and gentlemen, is a simple description of how organizations have to wake up to the realities of changing technologies. Either you disrupt the way in which you're carrying out your business, or you would end up becoming disrupted. You would end up becoming obsolete. What do I mean by digital transformation? It is not a project, it is not a technology. It is literally a complete and holistic transformation or complete and holistic redoing of the way in which an organization carries out business. What do I mean by this? Within an organization, you have several business processes, several areas of operation. Digital transformation is where the management of an organization has to look at these individual business processes or lines of business and understand what parts of these business or lines of business can be automated, what parts of it can be made more efficient, can be made more cost effective, can reduce the overall human involvement through simple automation mechanisms. So for example, if an organization is involved in delivering trainings on a monthly basis to the customers, instead of having a classroom session, which of course now COVID-19 has impacted, instead of having a classroom session, can I have pre-recorded videos which can be accessed on demand by my customers? This is a very, very simple example of digital transformation of the education or the training sector of the organization itself. Similarly, we will look at the case of a bank in one of the upcoming slides. We will look at the bank as well and how sections of the banking processes can be completely digitized, can be completely automated. Now, does every organization have to go for this digital transformation? On the previous slide, I told you either you disrupt or you will end up becoming disrupted. The answer is no. It is not true that digital transformation is applicable to every organization in the world. You have to look at it on a case by case basis. Does it make sense? Does it make sense to automate specific sections of the business? If not, do not go for it because you will end up spending more money on a project which does not produce sufficient value. Just 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, sorry. So, like I was saying, digital transformation is not something which is one size fits all kind of an approach which can be adopted by all organizations in a specific sector. You have to look at it on a case by case basis. Does it apply for your business? Does it apply for your organization? If yes, then you can go ahead and devise a strategy for it. But at the end of the day, the objective of digital transformation is to ensure ease of business operations through, of course, automation of processes, but also achieving client satisfaction, delivery excellence for your customers. The end objective is that your customers are leaving the organization with a smile. You're able to transform the experience that the customers have. I will explain with some solid examples as well. Let's take the case of Kodak. Those of us who are from the younger generations, those who are probably born in the after the 2000s, when you say Kodak, you'll probably not even recognize what this company is. But those who are just one generation older, those who grew up in the 90s, grew up in the 80s, we remember Kodak as being the de facto, the leader when it comes to the photography sector itself. Today, Kodak does not even exist. Why? What happened? What went wrong with Kodak? Simple example. In the early days, when it was at its peak, Kodak had 145,000 employees, and they were the leaders when it came to film photography. Kodak, Konica, these were the leading organizations, followed, of course, by Fujifilm, Canon, and so on. What happened to Kodak? They failed to recognize the transformation that digital photography was bringing to the industry. They wanted to still cling to the old-fashioned film photography because they were the world leaders when it came to film photography. But guess who invented digital photography? Ironically, Kodak themselves, they only invented digital photography. And you see this digital camera here, which was created by one of their own employees, Steve Sasson. He presented this prototype to his senior management within Kodak and said that this could be a game changer. It could completely transform the way in which the industry creates as well as consumes pictures or images. Unfortunately for Mr. Steve Sasson, his management did not sponsor this project, and they failed to take the lead in pioneering the digital wave when it came to photography. Needless to say, their rivals, their competitors, they picked up the opportunities. Canon, Nikon, and so on, the other organizations, they are still leaders when it comes to digital photography. Kodak does not exist anymore. They filed for bankruptcy the same week that Instagram was acquired by Facebook for $1 billion, right? Within just 2 years, Instagram was founded in 2010 and sold to Facebook in just 2 years in the year 2012 for $1 billion, the same week that Kodak filed for bankruptcy. That was the entire irony of the story. If you think about it, ladies and gentlemen, there are a lot of such cases. Organizations which failed to see the blowing winds of change. They failed to recognize, they failed to devise a strategy to ride the wave of transformation. When I say you can think of other names, here are some very, very popular examples. Nokia, BlackBerry, Motorola. These organizations were the leaders when it came to the cell phone sector, especially Nokia. They were a giant. They were a giant to the point of being even, I would say, arrogant because they had the unchallenged leadership in the mobile segment market, in the mobile market. What they failed to recognize was the fact that Android was going to be big. the fact that touchscreen was going to overtake the older, button-based mobile phones. Samsung recognized this. Samsung and Apple, of course, they completely revolutionized the way in which the mobile market was operating. And with the advent of iOS, Android, and of course the touchscreen, it was just a matter of time before Nokia, BlackBerry, and Motorola they lost their edge. In fact, it was only recently that Nokia came out with an Android equivalent with an Android-based mobile phone, and of course BlackBerry as well. Similarly, Yahoo in the 90s and the 2000s, they were the leaders when it came to web-based solutions, including search. They were outrun by Google with a far more efficient algorithm for search, their page ranking algorithm. From the social media perspective, Facebook is today the undisputed leader, but were they the first? No. MySpace, Orkut, these organizations were the first movers into the social media space. They failed to see that the needs of the people that were using their platforms, they failed to recognize this. Within a matter of time, they were outrun. Blockbuster was the leader when it came to video rentals. Video rental is when you walk up to a store and you see a movie you like, you rent the DVD, you rent the CD, or in the older days, you rent the VHS cassette tapes. Netflix has completely transformed the way in which we consume content. Blockbuster is no longer even a name that people recognize. Similarly, with the traditional automotive sectors, Toyota is the undisputed leader. Of course, General Motors and Ford, the old, I wouldn't say old yet, the petrol-based, combustion engine-based cars, which we are used to driving today, it's just a matter of time before they are outrun by self-driving, completely connected cars, which Tesla is pioneering. Amazon has changed the way in which we buy a lot of products. Toys R Us, Woolworths, a lot of retail-based companies have just literally filed for bankruptcy in the aftermath of competition from Amazon. Similarly, Uber has changed the way in which we hail taxis, we hail rides, rather than walking down to the road and hailing a taxi. Uber, Careem, etc. So different sectors of industry, ladies and gentlemen, there are massive streams of change. It is up to the organizations, no matter how big they are, if they do not recognize these winds of change, if they do not change the strategy of their organization towards a more digital future, it is probably just a matter of time before they get outrun by somebody else. But let me repeat again, it does not mean that every organization should run behind digital transformation. It does not always make sense. You have to do a case by case analysis. If it makes business sense, only then can they go out for automating specific sections of their business. Now, I'm going to give you a very simple example of digital transformation in the banking sector. When I told you a lot of organizations have already set up teams for digital transformation teams, what is it that they are responsible for doing? Now, you and me, all of us are familiar with banks because we all have several transactions with banks. So I figured that banks are a good example to include where we can demonstrate how digital transformation is going to disrupt the entire segment, the entire industry sector itself. When it comes to banks, we have the legacy banking systems, which means you have a core banking application within the bank. All the bank members, all the customers of the bank, all the account holders, all their details are available on the core banking application. You have different kinds of banking, retail, corporate, investment, etc. You have different lines of the business, and you have different channels through which people can interact or perform transactions with the bank. You can go to an ATM, you can physically walk up to a branch, you can perform internet banking, etc. Different payments, cards, mobile wallets, lending, advertising, etc. can be carried out through the bank itself. Now, what could be a potential disruptor of the way in which banks are established, the way in which banks are operating? You probably guessed it right. Cryptocurrencies are one of the biggest threats to the way in which the traditional banking system is established, the way in which it is operational. We did a session just last week on blockchain and cryptocurrencies and how, in fact, they are transforming the way in which cybercrime is actually operational, because they are facilitating payments for the dark web or the cybercrime economies. Cryptocurrencies have brought about a new realm where people are able to carry out financial transactions without any central entity, i.e., without a bank. Who must be the most threatened by cryptocurrencies? You're right, it's banks. For this reason, banks have actually woken up. They have within cryptocurrencies. This concept was launched in 2008 when Satoshi Nakamoto he published his paper on bitcoins in the year 2008, right? So ever since then, the last 10 to 12 years, banks have woken up. They have realized the threat of cryptocurrencies, of new currencies like Bitcoin and whatnot, and they've actually started to find out how blockchain can help them to transform the way in which they are delivering their business models to their customers. The complete disruption of the banking sector is possible through cryptocurrencies and blockchain. So banks have decided if we can't beat them, let's join them. So they've actually seen how they're actually exploring how segments of their business can be automated, can be transformed through cryptocurrencies itself, wherein they are at the end of the day still remaining relevant to the customers. So cryptocurrencies is a disruptor. From a transformer's perspective, IoT, artificial intelligence, and big data, they hold a lot of promise in the way in which they can transform the business, not to the extent of disrupting it, but at least just transforming specific sections. I'll give you a simple example of IoT. How can IoT transform the way in which a bank is supporting their end customers? Imagine a scenario where you are a customer of a bank and you are walking through a mall. The CCTV camera in the mall recognizes you, your face, and through a facial ID detection system, it tracks you as individual person ABC. Now, this particular CCTV camera is linked to a jewelry store, let's say. And this jewelry vendor, they have a tie-up with your bank. Every time a customer of the bank walks in front of the store, because this jeweler has a tie-up with your bank, the bank is immediately intimated. The bank is made aware that yes, one of their customers is now near this particular store. Immediately, they send an SMS to this customer, which tells him or her, you know what, walk into that store right now and purchase something for 50,000 dirhams or 5,000 dirhams if possible. If this is what you're going to be spending, we will give you an interest-free loan. Or if you're going to swipe your credit card, we will give you extra, 1,000 points or something like this. So this is just-in-time or real-time marketing, which is made possible through Internet of Things. It can transform the way in which the bank is selling to their customers. Enablers are the less disruptive components of digital transformation: social media, mobile, analytics, as well as cloud, right? Now, of course, digital transformation is good. It means pulling more data of your customers, processing more data of your customers, and then, uh, you know, transforming the way in which your business is actually carried out for the end customers itself. But a simple question that might have struck our minds is, what about the security and the privacy parts of these new areas of technology? That is correct. It's not just going forward and always, supporting business or enabling business processes. We need to have a right balance between the legal aspects of processing more data. For example, in the case that I gave you, what if the customer has a problem with their faces being recognized by those CCTV cameras? Privacy is a big question. What if the customer does not want the bank to track their every move? He does not want to receive SMS when he's not expecting it. Privacy is a big question. Similarly, the security of the additional data that the bank is processing. What about the legal framework of the country in which they're operational? All of these questions have to be addressed as well. This is why we have two new technologies called fintech as well as regulatory tech or supervisory tech. Technology which supports regulation, which supports security, technology which supports increased or transformation of the way in which banks are carrying out their business. This is fintech, by the way. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, with an example of the banking sector, I hope I've explained to you what is digital transformation and why it is key for organizations to recognize the need of the hour when it comes to digital transformation. Why it is important that these organizations ride the waves of change, because if they fail to, they could be rendered obsolete. It's just a matter of time before somebody else, a fledgling new company which is barely 1 year old, they overtake you and they become the next big leaders. Again, let me repeat, it is not necessary that digital transformation has to be adopted by every single organization. Some segments of the business, it is better to continue with the old-fashioned way. It's not always necessary that digital transformation is a good thing. Also, in the aftermath of COVID-19, like I opened this particular presentation, a lot of organizations have been forced to accelerate that digital transformation roadmap, or to at least create a new digital transformation roadmap? How can we deliver business in the absence of face-to-face interactions? What parts of the business can be done online? And surprisingly, a lot of organizations have seen that they can be a lot more efficient. They can save a lot of money through online delivery of their business objectives. Not every meeting has to happen face to face. Not every session has to be done face to face. A lot of transactions, a lot of transactions, including legal transactions, for example, can be carried out through online platforms. Now, when it comes to digital transformation, what are the multiple components? What are the different components of a digital transformation roadmap? There are many, many components, but the primary and the most commonly available components are the ones that you see over here. Starting, of course, with the cloud, because if you are going to be processing a lot of data and if you want it to be accessible to multiple components at different locations, you would have to consider adopting a cloud-based strategy for your digital transformation. It would be reliant on big data. What really is big data? How can it help? We will try to understand that as well. Social media is a key component as well, because your customers will post a lot, make a lot of social media posts. Can you have a tap into your customers' social media feed? Can you create profiles of your customers based on what they're talking about on Facebook, on Instagram, and so on? If yes, that is a key component of your digital transformation roadmap. IoT, needless to say, is one of the fundamental components of digital transformation, because we are talking about sensors and always connected, always on sensors, which are positioned at strategic points, collecting data about target components and processing that data at speed. Lastly, mobile as well is a key component of your digital transformation roadmap. Now, what are each of these components? Let's try to understand very quickly from a security perspective. When it comes to cloud, you have different models for cloud deployments. You can have infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or security as a service. But who is responsible for security on the cloud? Who is responsible for security of different components? Now, this is a question which baffles a lot of organizations, and it's a lot easier understood than actually implemented. You know why? The reason is, depending upon whether it's infrastructure, platform, or software as a service, depending upon the model or the engagement model, the rules of accountability will actually change. For some segments, it is the cloud service provider who is responsible. For some segments, it is the customer who is responsible. I'll give you a very, very classic example. Just last year, Capital One suffered a debilitating cybersecurity attack. Data pertaining to thousands of their customers was compromised, and it was found that this data was hosted on an AWS, Amazon Web Service cloud platform. So the instant question was, is cloud safe? Is AWS safe? Can we go out and trust cloud service providers with our data, especially production data about our customers? When a bank like Capital One is going to be hacked, how secure are we? This is the kind of question that organizations were asking themselves. Well, it turned out the fault was not with AWS, the fault was with Capital One. I'll tell you why. Because the model of engagement between AWS and Capital One was such that it was a platform as a service kind of an engagement, which means AWS, Amazon is giving Capital One the platform. They have to deploy the operating systems. They have to deploy the different components. They have to deploy the software as well as the data on top of this particular platform. So when they did this, they did not configure a web application firewall in the correct way. So the platform was provided by Amazon. The components had to be defined, had to be configured, deployed properly by Capital One. One particular web app firewall they did not do correctly, as a result of which there was a data security breach. Now, depending upon the kind of engagement, is it a software platform or application or infrastructure as a service kind of engagement? These roles of accountability, who is responsible for what, this changes. This has to be very, very clearly laid out when it comes to cloud security. Encryption of data, identity and access management, visibility and logging. These are the key challenges that organizations face when it comes to security on the cloud. We will talk about this. We will talk about some security risks on the cloud and how you can actually fix this with Ingram Micro Cybersecurity. The next component is the Internet of Things. Now, what really is the IoT? The Internet of Things is a collection of heterogeneous components, right? So when I say heterogeneous components, why I'm saying this is because you have sensors which are collecting different kinds of data at all points of time. Different kinds of data, which means I gave you the example earlier of facial recognition of a person, right? So this is done through a CCTV camera, which is detecting faces, which is detecting light images at all points of time. Similarly, you might have a sensor which is recording voices. This is a microphone, of course. You might have a sensor which is recording temperature changes, pressure changes, heat, cold, all of these fluctuations and the environmental factors. This is what is being detected by a particular sensor. Or movements, people are moving, animals are moving, vehicles are moving, plate recognition systems on the roads, different kinds of sensors, different kinds of components, right? So a collection of heterogeneous components which are always collecting data about the environment in which they are deployed. Not only are they collecting it, they are analyzing it either on-site or off-site. You have some on-site computing equipment which can analyze the data in real time, make some inferences in real time itself, or the data will be shipped to a data center, an off-site location, a data center where there is more detailed analysis of the data that was collected. I'll give you a very, very simple example of IoT in action, which you and me, we are probably already familiar with, especially if you're here based in Dubai. You are very, very familiar with the speeding cameras, which we are very careful of when we drive on the roads. Not only Dubai, of course, the whole of the UAE and most of the GCC countries itself. So we are very, very familiar with the speeding cameras. Now, when you're driving past a speeding camera, the camera detects the fact that there is a vehicle which is driving at a speed higher than the speed limit. Not only that, it also records the plate number of the vehicle. It, in fact, even goes to the extent of taking a photograph of the vehicle, catching the driver red-handed. All of this information gets collected. It is processed in real time, and you get an SMS. You get an SMS immediately within like 15 to 20 minutes stating that you have been fined with N100 dirhams because of the fact that you have exceeded the speed limit. Now, this is a case where there is processing in real time. The equipment which is responsible for analyzing the data and which is responsible for issuing the SMS is all present on site, and the fine is relayed immediately to the customer. Now, consider the scenario where there is a dispute by the customer. The customer wants to go back, and he or she is, or the driver rather, is disputing with the government authorities, stating that he or she was not exceeding the speed limits, right? So in this particular case, we'll have to go back to the archives. The archives are stored in a data center for offsite analysis. In case there is any dispute, in case there is any more detailed analysis required, then this is carried out through the offsite analysis. Okay, so different countries, different emirates have different ways of deploying it. This is a very simple example where you have analysis carried out on-site or off-site itself. Now, when it comes to securing the Internet of Things, you have to look at multiple layers. You need to look at security of the network services, the protocols that you're using, the web interfaces, if they can be exposed, if they can be breached very easily by malicious attackers. If you're going to be processing sensitive data, are you going to encrypt it? Also, interfaces with cloud applications, with cloud platforms, they also need to be secured properly to prevent data leakage or any other form of input attacks. Mobile interface as well, they also need to be protected. And lastly, authentication as well as authorization of users on the IoT platforms itself. The next domain that we're going to look at, which is a very, very underlying component of digital transformation, is big data. Now, in many of the conversations about digital transformation, you would have heard the phrase artificial intelligence being used, AI. AI is the new buzz, and everybody is talking about AI. But again, I'll repeat this: AI does not always make sense. It really depends on a case-by-case basis. Now, one of the technologies which made AI possible is the one that you're seeing right here, big data. The ability for organizations to collect huge masses of data about individuals, about any target, in fact, not only to collect it, but also to store it, process it, as well as analyze it very, very rapidly. This is, in fact, big data, and this is what has made technologies like artificial intelligence possible today. AI, in fact, has been around since the 1970s or the 60s when Professor John McCarthy proposed this component in Dartmouth University in the US. He proposed a concept of artificial intelligence way back in the 60s or 70s. But the technology to actually bring about AI was not present back then. Today, organizations can store massive data sets in databases which can be very efficiently scanned, which can be very efficiently queried, which can be indexed very fast. This is exactly what big data is all about, and big data has enabled practical implementations of artificial intelligence itself. Now, what are some of the security vulnerabilities when it comes to big data? You can have fake data that is being generated, which can confuse the algorithms. You can have untrusted mappers. What are untrusted mappers? We'll talk about this when we talk about database tracking in the next section. The possibility of sensitive information being mined and being misused, granular access control, data provenance difficulties, as well as absence of security audits. These are some of the key issues that organizations have when it comes to big data. What are each of these terminologies? What are each of these technologies? We will talk about it as well in the next sections. Also, ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you, if you have any questions at any point of time, please feel free to unmute yourself or use the chat window as well at any point. We will definitely take them up for discussion. Okay, as of now, there are no questions, but please feel free to use the opportunities to make it interactive. All right, the last component that we're going to look at is mobile. Mobile is also a key driver of digital transformation. Much of the world today, when you're looking at the majority of the world, it is only because of the mobile revolution that the internet has been brought. The access to the internet has been brought to remote villages, to remote areas, mountainous terrains, etc. It's only because of mobile technologies that the 11th mile connectivity of technology has been made available. Now, mobile has to be a very major part of an organization's digital transformation story if they want to reach every aspect of their totally addressable market, the TAM. If you're looking at 11th mile connectivity, you need to ensure that mobile is also properly addressed. When it comes to mobile security, a lot of vulnerabilities do exist. Data is not stored properly. Transport layer protection is not strong enough on the TLS layer. Application security is not being done. Data is not being encrypted, and so on and so forth. So a lot of these issues exist. These have to be addressed from a holistic perspective itself. Now, in this section, ladies and gentlemen, we have covered the 4 key components of digital transformation, which was cloud, big data, the Internet of Things, as well as mobile. We understood that they are core and fundamental to your organization's digital transformation journey, but they can be fraught with a lot of security vulnerabilities. We from Ingram Micro, we can help you. We can help you to recognize these security vulnerabilities, and not only that, we can also help you to fix them so your digital transformation journey will be successful. How can you identify these security risks? How can you transform them? This is what I'm going to talk about in this particular section, which is, by the way, one of the last sections for today's session. Ingram Micro Cybersecurity. Like I said, the team is more than 3 years old. It was founded way back in 2016. We're almost 4 years old. By the end of this year, we will be. We offer holistic solutions in cybersecurity, cutting across people, cutting across processes, as well as technologies. Which means for people, we have trainings. For processes, we offer technical assessments, consultancy, as well as managed security services. And when it comes to technology, like I said, Ingram Micro is the largest tech distributor on the planet, which means when it comes to cybersecurity technologies, any leading vendor you can think about, we are already distributing their products. So you just need to get in touch with us and we can design the solutions for you and deploy them as well for you. So with this holistic picture in our minds, let's try to understand how we can secure different layers of your digital transformation roadmap with Ingram Micro Cybersecurity. When it comes to cloud, some of the top digital transformation risks is, the first one you see is that data is not properly encrypted, identity and access management procedures are not strongly defined, there is poor visibility and logging of data handling procedures, which we saw about earlier. With Ingram Micro Cybersecurity, we have consultancy, technical assessments, and managed security services, as well as trainings, which can help you to fix these issues. If data is not properly encrypted, we will perform an audit. We will perform a holistic audit against security standards, best practices to find out where data has to be encrypted, if at all it needs to be encrypted. We can perform a holistic cloud security assessment. And if there is a data security breach, for example, data has been compromised, it's been leaked, we can help you to recover from this particular incident as well and contain the breach. Similarly, identity and access management procedures, they are not strongly defined, they are not strongly implemented. We can perform a risk assessment, gap assessment, we can develop policies and procedures for you, and to actually carry out a proper mapping of your access control matrix across different sections of the business itself. So we will start by creating the access control matrix, and then we will actually deploy it for your organization's respective cases itself. Of course, we also have a whole lot of trainings on security awareness, risk assessment methodologies, compliance standards, etc. as well, which all cover the identity and access management part. Insufficient visibility and logging of data handling procedures, which means you need to perform source code review because your logs are not being generated properly. If at all there is a breach, digital forensics to respond to the breach itself, and also web app assessments to help you to test your web applications, ensure that they are fortified against security attacks. When it comes to IoT, we saw earlier that you can have network security vulnerabilities, web interface vulnerabilities, improper authentication authorization, as well as poor physical security controls. How can we help you here? For network security vulnerabilities, it means that it can mean a couple of things when it comes to network security. Your network architecture is not securely configured, which means you don't have different layers, you don't have segmentation, you don't have a DMZ configured. Your devices are not properly hardened. Your firewalls are using insecure protocols like Telnet, FTP, etc., or HTTP, which can be easily compromised. Your wireless networks are not secure. You're using the old insecure wireless protocols, etc. We can perform a holistic network security audit or VAPT, vulnerability assessments, pen testings, etc., to find out those issues and actually fix them before they are exploited by an attacker. Similarly, web interface vulnerabilities, improper authentication authorization. We can catch all of these issues as part of our services, starting with VAPT or risk assessment, audit, gap assessment, etc. Poor physical security controls. Why is this important? Especially with the Internet of Things. Your sensors are deployed on site. And sometimes you'll also have something called the edge computing devices, which are responsible for on-site processing of data. These devices can be compromised. These devices can be tampered with, and there can be loss of data or unavailability of your critical systems, your critical components, because of poor physical security controls. We also have expertise in physical security. We can carry out a holistic physical security review for your organization, find out what gaps you need to fix, what controls you need to deploy, maybe preventive, maybe technical, maybe administrative. With big data, the biggest problems are the ones that you see over here. Fake data may be generated, which can confuse your algorithms, which can confuse the efficiency, which can override the efficiency of your entire operation itself. Untrusted data mappers, sensitive information may be mined, as well as privacy of data subjects may not be protected. We can carry out a holistic data security risk assessment or review of your source code to check where data is coming from, where data is being sourced from, and if this data is actually genuine data or it is fake data. Untrusted mappers can be used for function calls within your application code. We will perform a holistic security assessment of your databases, the different functions, the different variables which are accessing the database components, the ways in which the database is structured itself. If there's any mapper which is not a legitimate one, we will identify it and we will fix it for you before it can be misplaced or misused by an attacker. Again, the possibility of sensitive information mining, we will catch it as part of data security risk assessments, which are holistic review of what kind of risks can actually play out in your information systems ecosystem. When it comes to privacy, this is one of the biggest challenges of big data. And also in the example that I gave you, when you see your customer walking in front of a store and you detect the fact that he or she is over there, what about their privacy? This is a very difficult section to address. But with the advent of GDPR, a lot of countries, in fact, 80 plus countries all over the world, they have already brought about some form of privacy law or the other. In the UAE, we are expecting a UAE data protection law to be launched anytime. Maybe within 2020 itself, it will be launched. But within DIFC, just to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, the data protection law came into effect. It was announced on June 1st, and since July 1st, it's already active. So it's a very detailed law which talks about protection of privacy for data subjects when it comes to organizations within the jurisdiction of the DIFC. We from Ingram Micro, we are an authorized training provider on GDPR we are authorized by the IAPP. Not only that, we also offer GDPR related services, privacy related services to help you to identify the privacy do's and don'ts and to fix wherever there is an issue. Lastly, from the mobile components, when it comes to poor TLS layer protection or insecure communications, we again carry out audits, VAPTs, source code reviews, and a whole suite of services, as well as trainings to address these issues. Just to let you know, side channel data leaks is when data can be compromised by tapping into the physical components of a mobile device or any device for that particular matter. Physical components in the sense emanations, vibrations, radiations which are emanated by a computing device. These can be measured by hackers to see when a device is actually carrying out a an intensive activity, like for example, downloading a huge file, encrypting a particular file, and so on and so forth. By analyzing these physical components of a computer or a mobile device, they will be able to decipher what data is being transmitted. This is what we call side channel attacks or side channel data leaks. The best way to protect against this is something called a Faraday cage, which traps all of these radiations, traps all of these vibrations, and hold them from being analyzed by attackers. Right? We can help you to identify when there is a possibility of a side channel attack, side channel data leak, and we can help you to actually protect yourself against this. Those of us who are familiar with CISSP, you would have seen this as well in your CISSP material. It is covered in our CISSP training as well. Risk of client-side code injection. What happens here is, for example, SQL injection. Instead of entering my name in the field, enter your name, I will enter select star from XYZ, which is an SQL command, which is designed in such a way that I will try to exploit an application and pull data out from the database itself or cause the database to crash. This is because of poor coding practices where these client-side injection attacks are not identified. They are not explicitly blocked. For example, SQL injection or buffer overflow attacks. So these attacks, you have to cache them out in the early phases itself, and we can help you to do that when we do a source code review or a web app assessment. Ladies and gentlemen, not only do we offer services, we also offer a whole suite of tools that we have developed to help you identify your security posture and to help you to improve your overall security posture. The first one is something called Discovery, where we will scan the internet, we will scan publicly available resources for any information about your organization, which can be misused by a potential hacker. We will identify these pieces of information and we will give it to you in a neat report so you can fix it before it can be compromised. Examples, we've seen confidential files lying on unprotected web servers on the internet. We've seen leaked email IDs with their passwords, which have been hacked. They're available for sale on the dark web for like $2 for every email ID and password. Yeah, it's just $2, in fact. So we've seen all this, and we actually help you to fix these issues as part of Discovery. The second one is Cybergram, which is a simple 10-minute self-assessment questionnaire. Within 10 minutes, you'll know what are your security issues, what are the vulnerabilities within your organization by simply addressing 28 questions, which are mapped to established cybersecurity frameworks like the NIST cybersecurity framework, COBIT, and so on. Within 10 minutes, you will see what are your biggest issues. And not only that, you'll also find out how to fix those issues. It's a simple tool. If you wish to use it, you will find it at imcybergram.com, which is Ingram Micro Cybergram. So just if you Google IM Cybergram, you will find it, imcybergram.com. We also offer something called a virtual lab, which is a cloud-based platform where you can deploy security solutions from multiple vendors like A10, Aruba, Forcepoint, etc. Multiple security solutions have been deployed. You can deploy yours as well, and you can use it for POCs if you're a pre-sales engineer, or you can use it for demos, for trainings, whatnot. So, a simple cloud-based laboratory environment which we have set up, and it's called the virtual lab. If you wish to use it, just let us know, and we'll provision the access within 24 to 48 hours. Last one is security awareness trainings. This is where we are offering free trainings on foundations of cybersecurity, GDPR, etc. Free trainings which can be bundled with the rest of our cybersecurity solutions, which we just saw. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've completed the slides that I had here and the points that I wanted to talk to you about. So, in summary, if I can just summarize the points that we spoke about, digital transformation is a necessary strategy, is a necessary component on your organization strategy. It is necessary, but it is not always right. You need to understand, does it really apply to my business? If yes, how do I get it right? So there are different components within digital transformation. We looked at cloud, we looked at IoT, we looked at mobile, and we looked at big data. They each come with different security loopholes, security issues. And we also looked at how we from Ingram Micro Cybersecurity can help you to address those security issues through our services, through our solutions itself. I hope this session was useful. I hope that it was helpful for you to understand what is digital transformation. So there is one question. Let me remind you, if you have your questions, feel free, please, to type them into the chat window itself, and or you can even unmute yourself. I hope we will be able to learn from each other's experiences. Question from Manish: what is the starting point for digital transformation, and does it also mean paperless world for an organization? So, very great question, Manish. Thank you so much. So, the starting point for digital transformation, Manish, is we need to start by looking at our customers. Digital transformation, the end objective is that customers, they have a better experience. If you're not making the life of your customers easier, if you're not making it a simpler process for them to transact with your organization, if you're making it more complicated, or you're breaking something, you're fixing something which is not even broken in the first place, then you don't have to go and invest in a new digital transformation project. So digital transformation should be designed around your customer, giving them a better experience, and then from the customer we can see, does it make the other aspects of the business, does it make business sense to go about to do this? Does it reduce our operational efficiencies? Does it help me to reduce the human effort that is involved? Can I automate specific components? If yes, then we can go about with digital transformation. Does it also mean paperless world for an organization? Well, the answer is yes as well as no, Manish. Yes, because all the components of transactions, if you can keep them, through e-records, then it would lead to a paperless world. But it's also no, because it does not completely rule out the need for paper-based transactions, because in some cases you will need, for example, wet signatures of people, because you might have platforms like DocuSign which are considered valid, which are considered legal. You can use a platform like DocuSign to electronically sign legal agreements and legal documents. But nevertheless, in some cases, you still need people to physically sign. You need their wet signatures. So this means you need a paper-based transaction to happen. It's just that major chunk of the work can be automated. The final step, you might still need some paper to be involved. All right. So another question from Arvind Pushpakar. How can I enroll for the free cybersecurity awareness trainings? Okay, this is a great question, Arvind. Thank you so much. So free cybersecurity awareness trainings. Now, there are two ways to look at it. Every week, we are doing free security awareness trainings. Every Wednesday, we from Ingram Micro Cybersecurity, we are doing free trainings. Normally, it happens at 2 p.m. UAE time. So tomorrow as well, we have a free training, which is we are going to talk about GDPR foundations. This is one way in which we are offering free trainings for the whole world at large. Everybody is open and free to join. So if you wish to enroll for this, the best way to do this is to Follow us on Evanzilla. We have a link on Evanzilla which I will send you on this particular chat. All our trainings are updated on this particular link. In addition to that, the same way in which you received the invitation for today's training, you will be invited for all the upcoming trainings as well. Because I believe you should already be in our mailing list, which is why you received this particular invitation. So you will be receiving the same invitations for our upcoming free trainings. Not only this, the way in which we are offering free trainings is if you're carrying out a larger cybersecurity transaction with us, you wish to invest in specific services, specific products, we can also offer free trainings in to be bundled with these services, to be bundled with these products. I hope this helps, Arvind. Thank you so much. Another question from Manish. Another question on similar line: does PCs and internet count towards digital transformation? Customers. It's not a bad question at all, Manish. Thank you so much. Do PCs and internet count towards digital transformation? Yes. The internet, absolutely yes, because the cloud is a key component of digital transformation. Without 24/7 connectivity, many components of digital transformation may not be successful. So the internet as well as cloud are key components. PCs, I don't know what you mean by PCs, Manish, because we are more oriented towards mobile devices, tablets, etc. when it comes to digital transformation, where you're looking at increased agility of the business processes. So when you say laptops, you could agree to it because you are allowing people to be physically separated, physically isolated. Desktop PCs and the old-fashioned, desktop computers, maybe not so much. I hope this helped, Manish. And any other questions, ladies and gentlemen, please let me know. So thank you, Manish. In conclusion, digital transformation is here, it is now. We have to wake up and see if it makes sense to invest in it. But the journey is not without security risks. There are several security issues. Talk to us. We are here to help you. We are already working with organizations in the region and across Middle East, Turkey, Africa region to help them to navigate the directions of digital transformation with safe cybersecurity practices. Just get in touch with us. We are here to help you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Praveen Joseph from Ingram Micro Cybersecurity. It was an honor speaking to you today, and I hope you have an excellent rest of today as well. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.